Welcome back to our channel where rare coins tell extraordinary stories and tiny details turn pocket change into big money. And today we are diving into one of the most fascinating cases in the world of numismatics, the 1975 1-cent coin, a humble Lincoln penny that under normal circumstances might seem like just another copper coin from your everyday pocket change. But in some remarkable instances, this unassuming cent has been known to command values up to $270 or more due to its rare errors, striking mishaps, and fascinating production quirks that make collectors rush to grab one for their prized collections. So if you've ever thought that a penny is worthless or that finding one on the ground isn't worth the effort, think again, because by the end of this video you'll be checking your piggy banks, drawers, jars, and even old coffee cans for that elusive 1975 penny that could be hiding serious value in its flawed design. And what makes the 1975 1-cent so special, you ask? Well, let's begin with the context of its minting, as 1975 was part of a transitional era in the United States Mint when experimentation, mechanical inconsistency, and the sheer volume of coin production led to some surprising anomalies slipping through the cracks unnoticed by quality control. And while most 1975 pennies are standard copper coins composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc weighing 3.11 grams and featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, there are a select few that emerged from the minting presses with jaw-dropping errors that catapult their value far beyond face value, starting with one of the most intriguing categories of error, double dies. And the double die error is caused when the die used to strike the coin receives a misaligned or repeated impression from the hub, resulting in doubled features on the coin itself, and in the case of the 1975 penny, some examples exhibit strong doubling on the date, the word Liberty, or even the famous "I in God We Trust" motto. And if that doubling is pronounced and clear enough to the naked eye, especially under magnification, it can cause the value of the coin to rise dramatically, with some known double die obverse examples fetching hundreds of dollars on the secondary market because the doubling is not just subtle or questionable but very distinct, showcasing clear separation lines on the numbers and letters which collectors go crazy for. And then there's the matter of off-center strikes which result from a misalignment between the die and the coin blank, causing part of the design to be missing, and the more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date remains visible, and in the case of a 1975 penny that is struck 40%, 60%, or even 80% off-center with the date still clearly legible, such a coin can command significant premiums because it offers both rarity and visual appeal, becoming almost like modern abstract art made by the mint itself. And then we encounter the issue of die cracks and cuds which are caused when the die becomes damaged or broken over time due to repeated use. And this damage can result in raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin's surface where the die cracked or chipped. And collectors particularly enjoy identifying these so-called BIE errors, named for a common die break that appears between the B and E in Liberty. And while these can be relatively minor, they are still very collectible and increase the value of the coin beyond normal, especially when the cud is large or covers a prominent part of the design such as Lincoln's face or the date. And we must also consider the rare but captivating broad strike errors which occur when the coin is struck outside of its retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider than usual and lack its typical rim. And when a 1975 penny is found with such an error in mint state condition, it becomes an eye-catching oddity that easily fetches high bids from collectors who appreciate the striking difference in form compared to normal specimens. And another extremely rare but documented phenomenon is the use of incorrect planchets where a penny might be struck on a dime planchette or foreign coin blank, which alters the coin's weight and coloration. And in some astonishing cases a 1975 cent has been found struck on a 10-cent planchette, weighing only 2.27 grams and appearing silver in color, which is not only extremely rare, but also highly desirable, as it combines error, mystery, and uniqueness all in one. And speaking of planchets, There are also cases of clipped planchets where a portion of the coin is missing due to a misfeed in the blanking press, resulting in a crescent-shaped missing edge. And when this happens on a 1975 penny, particularly when the clip is dramatic and doesn't affect the visibility of the date or key features, it becomes another big money possibility, and then we enter the world of strike. Through errors which happen when foreign materials such as grease, wire, fabric, or debris interfere with the die during striking, leaving behind strange and unique impressions or blank areas. And these strike-throughs are always one of a kind, since the interference is never replicated in exactly the same way twice, making each error coin a singular collectible work of minting chaos. And in some instances these errors can obliterate parts of Lincoln's portrait or the text on the coin, drawing both curiosity and high offers from buyers who recognize the rare nature of the flaw. And what also adds to the collectability of the 1975 penny is the sheer volume produced. Over 5 billion coins minted at the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark, and another 4.5 billion from the Denver Mint bearing the D mint mark, which means that despite the high production numbers, very few error coins survive the minting process, and even fewer remain in circulation or good condition. And it's this combination of high mintage and low survival of flawed specimens that gives rare 1975 pennies their special allure, as they stand out like needles in a haystack, with the added twist that most people overlook them because they assume all pennies are worthless. But in reality the errors are hiding in plain sight, and many 1975 pennies with valuable errors have been found in circulation or inherited collections, proving that these coins are still out there waiting to be discovered by anyone observant enough to check their change. And then there's the matter of condition and grading, because a 1975 penny with a dramatic error that's also in uncirculated or mint state condition will always command a much higher price than a circulated one. And grading agencies like PCGS or NGC have authenticated and slabbed several high-quality error pennies from 1975 that fetched impressive prices at auction. And the more pristine the coin, the more value it retains, especially when combined with a rare minting flaw. So collectors are always on the lookout for sharp details, original luster, and minimal contact marks, which all help boost the desirability and price. And there are even stories of 1975 pennies being sold on online platforms or at coin shows for hundreds of dollars simply because they had multiple errors layered together, such as a double die with a die crack or an off-center strike with a clipped planchette. And when multiple minting mistakes appear on the same coin, the rarity increases exponentially, making it a numismatic jackpot. And don't forget about transitional errors or test strikes, which are incredibly rare but hypothetically possible due to the errors changing equipment and dies. So a coin that was accidentally struck with a leftover 1974 die or an experimental planchette intended for testing could result in a mysterious hybrid that commands astronomical value if authenticated. And with all these errors, double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, cuds, broad strikes, planchette clips, wrong metal blanks, strike-throughs, misaligned dies, rotated dies, and more, the 1975 penny becomes a fascinating playground of possibilities where each unique imperfection adds a layer of value, intrigue, and collectability. And every time a new error type is discovered, it adds fuel to the fire of demand among enthusiasts who track sales, catalog variations, and share discoveries in collector forums, which only increases awareness and pushes prices higher. And it's this active community of collectors, buyers, and sellers that helps determine the real-world market value of coins like the rare 1975 penny, which, although born from mistakes, have become mini treasures commanding $270 or more, not because of the metal they contain, but because of the stories their flaws tell, the rarity they represent, and the thrill of discovery they offer. And so as we wrap up this deep dive into the 1975 1-cent coin, next 2001 cent USA coin, where the ordinary can become extraordinary and where even a simple 1-cent coin might hold the kind of value that makes your heart race and your wallet smile. and today we are going to take a detailed and exciting look into the 2000 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a humble penny that in the eyes of a trained numismatist or era coin enthusiast could be worth as much as $69 or even more under the right conditions, all because of a fascinating array of potential mint errors, varieties, die anomalies, and planchette flaws that elevate this small copper-plated zinc disc from everyday currency to a highly collectible piece with value far beyond its face amount. And while the year 2000 might feel like yesterday to many of us, it was a pivotal time in the US mint's production history, marked by continued reliance on the zinc core cent introduced in 1982 and massive production numbers that in and of themselves introduced more chances for mistakes, defects, and striking anomalies that today are combed through relentlessly by coin roll hunters and collectors hoping to find a financially rewarding oddity in their pocket change. So let's peel back the curtain on all the reasons why the 2000 Lincoln cent could be worth $69 or even more, beginning with one of the most famous and sought-after categories of error, the double die, where doubling occurs during the hubbing process when a die receives more than one misaligned impression, leading to visible duplication in the coin's devices. And while the 2000 Lincoln cent does not have a headline-grabbing major double die obverse like the 1955 or 1972 varieties, there are nonetheless several confirmed instances of minor to moderate doubling, especially around the words Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, and occasionally the date, particularly when struck at the Philadelphia Mint. And these subtle but visible anomalies become especially valuable in higher grades, with strong examples fetching over $50 even in circulated condition and rising close to or beyond the $69 mark when slabbed by a third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC. And when these minor double dies combine with other errors such as die cracks, die chips, or even small lamination issues, their value can increase further, especially among collectors who specialize in oddities and unique strike errors. And speaking of lamination errors, this brings us to another major reason why the 2000 penny might be worth more than a few cents, because lamination errors occur when impurities or stress during the alloying process cause layers of the coin's surface to peel or flake off, often exposing jagged metal surfaces or odd ridges. And on a copper-plated zinc cent like the ones produced in 2000, these lamination flaws can create striking and sometimes eerie visuals that collectors find both fascinating and worth a premium, particularly when they occur on the obverse side or cover the portrait of Lincoln, or intersect with the date and mint mark. And a particularly dramatic lamination can easily push the value of the coin into the $69 range or more depending on the severity, size, and position of the defect. And let's not forget about off-center strikes, one of the most immediately recognizable and popular categories of mint error that occurs when the coin blank, or planchette, is improperly seated in the striking chamber, causing the resulting image to appear shifted or partially missing. And off-center errors on a 2000 penny can be worth anywhere from a few dollars to over $100 depending on how far off the strike is, with the most desirable ones being in the 40% to 60% off-center range while still retaining the full date and mint mark. And in this particular year, both Philadelphia and Denver minted large numbers of pennies, increasing the likelihood of such errors slipping past quality control and making their way into circulation. And coins that are off-center while also showing doubling, die chips, or even having retained cuds, those raised blobs where part of the die has broken off, can see their values multiplied due to the presence of multiple mint errors on a single specimen. And while we are on the topic of cuds and die breaks, it's worth exploring the phenomenon of die fatigue, especially in coins like the 2000 penny where the immense production volume may have resulted in overused or damaged dies producing weak strikes, die cracks, or retained interior breaks, which manifest as jagged lines, raised areas, or distorted features on the coin, often on Lincoln's head, shoulders, or on the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. And some of these die cracks form what collectors affectionately call spiked heads or lightning bolts. And the more dramatic or visually distinct the break, the more a collector may be willing to pay for it. especially when preserved in high grade, with some examples bringing in prices upwards of $69 just for the novelty and collectability factor. And another error that can significantly affect the value of a 2000 Lincoln cent is the so-called floating roof on the reverse side, where the top of the Lincoln Memorial appears to be disconnected from its columns due to excessive polishing of the die or improper die setup. And although common, high-grade examples with an extremely floating roof effect and little to no wear can fetch strong prices from dedicated collectors trying to build a full registry set of varieties. And when this floating roof occurs alongside other errors like reverse doubling or minor die chips in the building structure, it makes for a highly collectible error coin. And still more value lies in the strike-through category of errors, particularly grease-filled die errors, where accumulated debris in the die prevents portions of the design from fully transferring to the coin, resulting in coins missing letters, partial dates, or malformed features. And coins with partially missing liberty or feint we trust due to grease strikes are popular among variety hunters and can sell for more than $50 in circulated condition and over $69 in mint state grades depending on severity and eye appeal. And moving on to wrong planchette strikes, although incredibly rare, it is possible that a 2000 penny may have been mistakenly struck on a planchette meant for a dime, foreign coin, or even a defective blank of improper metal composition, and in cases where a penny is significantly underweight, has an unusual coloration, or is missing its copper plating altogether, it may in fact be an off-metal strike or transitional error, and such pieces, especially when authenticated, can bring values in the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Although a basic copper-plated zinc penny struck on a standard blank but exhibiting extraordinary strike-throughs, off-center alignment, lamination peels, or dramatic cuts can realistically and routinely sell for around $69 to eager collectors who understand the scarcity of such multi-error combinations. And then we must consider machine doubling or mechanical doubling, a form of flat and shelf-like doubling that occurs due to movement of the die or planchette during the strike, and while generally considered less valuable than true hub doubling, in the year 2000 some pennies display strong enough mechanical doubling on the date and mint mark to be mistaken for hub doubling by the untrained eye, and such pieces, while not as rare, can still attract attention from collectors building type sets of various doubling forms and command modest premiums when found in excellent condition. And now let's turn our attention to die chips, particularly in the lettering or Lincoln's eye and beard area, because these small raised metal blobs result from broken or deteriorating dies and can appear anywhere on the coin's surface, sometimes forming shapes that resemble extra fingers, horns, warts, or other strange features that give the coin a unique appearance and nickname appeal in the collector world. And coins with particularly large or oddly shaped die chips, such as the BIE era, where a chip between the B and E in Liberty creates what looks like an extra letter, can become collector favorites and sell for significantly above face value, especially in mint state, and when you combine one or more of these minor last 2005 1-cent USA coin. Today we are going to shine a spotlight on the fascinating and sometimes overlooked 2005 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a common coin by mintage standards but a remarkable one when it comes to the variety and depth of errors, misstrikes, and production anomalies that can turn it from a simple copper-plated zinc disc worth just a penny into a collectible specimen that's sold for $149 or even more. And what's most exciting about the 2005 penny is that many of these potentially valuable mistakes are out in circulation or hiding in coin jars, rolls, and collections all across the country, and it just takes a little patience and a keen eye to uncover these miniature pieces of minting history. So whether you're a seasoned collector or a newcomer to the hobby of error coin hunting, this deep dive into the 2005 penny will give you everything you need to identify, understand, and appreciate the full range of possibilities that can elevate its value far beyond face, and to understand why the 2005 penny can be so valuable, we need to first consider the minting process itself, because it's in this complex, high-speed mechanical system that most of the errors occur. where thousands of coins are struck per minute using dies that transfer the coin design onto blank planches, and any interruption, misalignment, defect, or even tiny deviation in this process can produce results that are fascinating to collectors and can command a premium on the numismatic market, and the 2005 penny is particularly interesting because it was minted in enormous quantities at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints using copper-plated zinc composition, which has been the standard since 1982. And this composition is notorious among collectors and error spotters because it is prone to a variety of issues including lamination problems, plating bubbles, die cracks, and even strike-throughs, which we'll explore in detail as we go, starting with one of the most desirable and well-known categories of mint error, the doubled die, which occurs when the coin die receives multiple misaligned impressions from the master hub, resulting in a design that appears to be duplicated or doubled. And while 2005 does not boast a famous headline doubled die like some earlier dates, it is far from free of doubling issues, as several collectors have reported light to moderate doubling on the obverse elements such as Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and even the date, and while these may be subtle, they become incredibly significant when found in higher grades or on coins that also have other errors, making them valuable to collectors who specialize in error varieties. And examples that show this doubling clearly and remain in near mint condition can be worth anywhere from $50 to $149 depending on grade and eye appeal. And what's more, because doubled dies are sometimes overlooked by casual observers, there's always a chance that one is sitting unnoticed in a pocket or a roll, just waiting for the right person to spot it. And then there's the issue of plating bubbles, which are small raised bumps or pustules on the coin's surface caused by poor adhesion between the copper plating and the zinc core underneath. And this is an especially common problem in post-1982 cents due to the cost-cutting measures that led to thinner copper layers and less durable bonds. And in 2005, some of the coins produced exhibit extreme examples of plating separation that form irregular bubbles on Lincoln's cheek, neck, or even on the reverse fields. And while minor plating bubbles may not always command high prices, extreme or visually prominent ones can become collector curiosities, especially if they distort key design features or appear alongside other errors. And in some documented cases, coins with dramatic plating issues have fetched values approaching or exceeding $149 when authenticated and encapsulated by third-party graders. And now let's talk about one of the most eye-catching types of error, off-center strikes, which occur when the planchette is not properly aligned in the striking chamber and ends up being hit partially outside the die's intended area, creating a coin that has part of the design missing and a crescent of blank space. And the value of such an error depends largely on how far off the strike is and whether or not the date and mint mark are still visible. And in 2005, off-center pennies that are 40% to 60% off but still show the full date are considered highly desirable, and examples like that have sold for over $100, with the $149 price tag within reach for coins that also include other errors or are in particularly high mint state condition. And this is where the concept of combination errors really becomes important, because while a single minor error might be interesting, the presence of two or more distinct mint mistakes on one coin exponentially increases its collector appeal and value. And some of the most interesting 2005 cents feature a mix of lamination peels, doubling, and strike-throughs all on the same piece, creating a truly unique item that tells a story of multiple failures in the minting process. And lamination errors in particular are worth noting because they are caused when impurities in the metal or stress in the planchette's surface cause a portion of the coin's surface to peel away or crack, exposing jagged metal or odd shapes that break the otherwise smooth coin's surface, and dramatic laminations on the obverse, especially across Lincoln's face or torso, can fetch high premiums. And in some cases, pieces like this have sold for $149 or more depending on how severe and eye-catching the error is. And collectors prize these because they are non-repeatable anomalies that make each error coin truly one of a kind. And we can't forget the ever-popular die cracks and die chips, which occur when a die develops a fracture or small break and transfers that defect onto every coin it strikes until the die is retired or repaired. And 2005 Lincoln cents are known to sometimes display interesting die breaks on Lincoln's head, shoulders, and even in the reverse building structure. And when the die crack is prominent enough, especially when it resembles something like a horn or spike coming from Lincoln's head, these are often nicknamed spiked head varieties and can become cult favorites among collectors. And if a coin features such a dramatic die crack along with other features like strong red color, minimal wear, or additional mint flaws, its price can easily reach the $149 mark. And moving on to strike-through errors, which occur when a foreign object such as a piece of cloth, wire, or even grease gets between the die and the planchette during striking, leaving behind a ghostly imprint or missing portion of the design. And while some strike-throughs are minor, others can be dramatic and even resemble unusual shapes or letters that pique the curiosity of collectors. And 2005 cents with visible strike-throughs, especially those that affect the face, lettering, or date area, are highly collectible and can sell for well over $100 depending on size, shape, and condition. And when these strike-throughs are paired with dramatic plating issues or die cracks, the appeal is even higher. And another popular but overlooked error is the floating roof, where the top of the Lincoln Memorial appears disconnected from its columns due to over-polishing of the die. And while this error appears in many years, examples from 2005 are sometimes particularly distinct, especially if accompanied by extra columns, die gouges, or weak reverse devices. And these subtle but interesting features can enhance a coin's value when found in pristine condition, especially if certified by a grading service. And let's not forget about coins that were struck through retained debris or on defective planchets, where zinc rot or gas bubbles cause odd pitting or textures that look like corrosion but are actually mint-related defects. And when such coins are accurately identified and authenticated, they can sell for solid premiums because they represent failures in the mint's quality control process. And some even include partial brockages, where one coin sticks to the die and strikes another, leaving a mirror image impression that's prized for its dramatic appearance and rarity. And though rare for 2005, examples of such errors, when confirmed, are known to push beyond $149 in value. And finally, it's important to consider the overall condition, or grade, of the coin, because while errors add value, that value increases significantly.